Dallas Pimiento, Book 2. I'm Bronco 2. Starting with a piece called Lido Cork. It relieves me immensely to get to write about Lido Cork because not only does it allow me to step outside the self-imposed boundaries of the map zone, Lido Cork is a TV character, but also because it gives me, for reasons I can't exactly define at the moment, the opportunity to re-enter the narrative. I have tried to keep myself out of things, being dead. I thought it appropriate, but there is a limit to how much and how long I can remain consistent thematically and true to my initial intentions. As I have said before, purism is our enemy. In addition to all of that, there are only so many things I can say without showing my hand, as it were. Perhaps a better image would be that of a puppeteer giving the audience a glimpse of himself, but then again, that might involve showing his hand. Thus we come to Lido Cork. Tomatoville has two private broadcasting networks as well as a government-run one, all of which provide original programming of a strictly entertainment nature. Lido Cork is a character on The Vitamin Store, a program on the Mold Network. He is not the protagonist of the show, nor the best friend of the protagonist, but a colorful rival for the attentions of the protagonist. As played by Reg Turnblatt, he has become a citywide obsession, a hero to thousands of self-consciously odd, disaffected young men. His fame is even extended to Oakroton and Corn City, whose residents can pick up broadcast signals from Tomatoville with special quasi-legal boosting equipment. Even I, in my nebulous realm, have access to map zone broadcasting, both radio and TV. Numbered among the small amount of programs that I allow myself to waste time on is The Vacuum Store. It is a silly show weighed down with a clumsy laugh track, but the Lido Cork character redeems it to a certain extent. Through the ether transfer mechanisms at my disposal, I have made contact with Lido Cork, the character, not the actor within, for your enlightenment and amusement. Me, Lido Cork. It is good to speak with you. Lido Cork. I feel similarly in regard to you. We're going to go back and forth like that for a second. In the few moments we have remaining, could you tell me what you think of Reg Turnblatt's portrayal of you? Few moments? I thought we had plenty of time. I'm sorry, this medium is even more restricted than that of a sitcom. They told me you operated in a rarefied atmosphere, but I see it's the same old snow job. Your children will be disappointed. Now liberated from the bonds of silence, I find it hard to control myself and reserve my commentary to the most opportune and discreet of moments. However, I will try to fulfill the terms of the format as diligently as possible while still allowing myself my indulgences. A compromise, but the way I see it, that's what the concept of ineinandergreifend entails. As for your children will be disappointed, I would suppose that title refers to the day when my children, grown to maturity, sift through my collected works looking for something publishable, something that will bring them some cash in exchange for the burden of having to keep up with so much clutter. They will find only page after page of drivel like this one. I just ate 3 snack cakes. Yes, we have vending machines here in Oblivion. And now the guilt of that act is only adding to the downward spiral I feel in contemplating my children's disappointment. If I could summon Dallas Pimiento for a chat, I might feel better, but as he is now in the map zone, he is beyond my direct contact. Perhaps zooming in on him for a little observational narrative will suffice. He is in his studio. A bedroom that once housed a little boy and all his toys, books, and collections. He faces a small canvas upon which he has placed 4 crude figures in the most sketchily devised of rooms. So sleepy, he says to himself. He wants to continue painting, but he knows that he will be He wants to continue painting, but he knows that he will be cheating the work if he continues in his present state. With an effort, he throws his brush into a bucket of water and seals up his paints. They are kept in old baby food jars. I got them from a friend of mine whose wife had a baby, he explained to a visitor only the other day. The visitor, a gay man who teaches gerontology at the nearby university, had stopped by to view Pimento's work. Pimiento thought he had a possible patron on his hands, but, as usual, he failed to do or say the right thing that would set him on the path to a real career. Your figures are rather crude, aren't they? The professor had said. Pimiento took this as a compliment. After all, he didn't want to be Norman Rockwell, did he? Worm's accommodation held indefinitely. 20 feet beneath the surface lay the Gavin Hotel. Its manager, Mr. Holmes, paced the area behind the front desk. "Midnight, the letter," he said. He moaned and wrung his hands together. "Relax, Mr. Holmes," the desk clerk said softly. "Don't you tell me to relax," Holmes shot back. "I can have you fired any time I like for any reason, or for no reason at all. You remember that." Dennis, the clerk, looked across the lobby. "A few more weeks," he thought. "A few more weeks and I can quit this job." He kept telling himself that he could tough it out. It usually wasn't so bad, he admitted, but tonight Holmes was here, worried over the supposedly imminent arrival of some important guest. A mile away, traveling along the subaltern switchback, Minder Rump, a worm among worms, star of the notorious The Grabber series of films. The Grabber mounts the moon, Coronation for the Grabber, and the Grabber eats his words, was twiddling his thumbs in the back seat of a large private transport. He sighed with impatience as the driver made yet another report on his ongoing efforts to repair the engine. "Something jammed in the traverse sprocket plate." The driver sniffed hard at his runny nose. "I don't think proper maintenance has been done on this car." "Okay," Rump nodded tersely, not looking at the driver. He couldn't bear to. His exasperation was growing by the minute. He wanted to drink in a hot shower. Finally, he leapt out of the back of the vehicle and informed the driver that he would catch a ride from some passing conveyance. "Oh, I wouldn't do that if I was you, sir. You could get stuck with a nut," the other worm, fat and greasy, warned. "I'll take my chances. If you ever get this piece of shit running, continue with the trip as scheduled." "Okay, sir, but—" Minder Rump turned towards the road. It was night and not much traffic about, but he soon managed to get the attention of a brightly painted coupe. "Do you think you could give me a lift to the Gavin Hotel?" he asked. "I've never heard of it," replied the young female at the wheel, "but I'll find it if I can." Chapstick eaten in near desperation. Although ravenous, uncontrollable hunger had not yet claimed Weston's mind and body, he caved in to it an idea that had come to him about an hour before and ate the almost full tube of Chapstick brand lip balm that he carried in his pocket of his forest green duster. "It contains natural fats that my body can process into energy," he told the others midway through the pink column of balm. "Is there such a thing as an unnatural fat?" Giftwood asked Nadal. "Candles made of human tallow," Brad intoned with a striking deadpan that froze any hope of jocular discussion. Brad rose from the empty mango crate he had slept on the night before. "I was there when they ate them. I didn't see them manufactured. I was out on patrol, but I saw them gagged down. I was tempted, but I didn't succumb. The temptation must not have been that great." Brad stood in the center of the circle of fairly puckish men. "It still doesn't come under the heading of unnatural. That's my point. By definition, everything that exists is natural, and therefore Nadal could cut Giftwood off. He doesn't mean natural in that sense. Besides, Brad's voice was sharp. That stuff will give you diarrhea." He pointed his finger at Weston. "At least now I'll have the energy to get out of here," Weston cried, his teeth glistening. He dashed to the locked door. "It's the petroleum distillates. They've driven him mad." Someone, supposedly knowledgeable on such matters, shouted as Weston heaved at the heavy bolt that barred their way. "Stop it!" Tom and Lester shouted as they rushed forward. They grappled with the crazed Weston, tearing his fingers away from the door. "You fools!" Weston cried. He fell to his hands and knees on the floor. "Don't you feel it? It's dinner time! It's dinner time!" he sobbed uncontrollably. Frank, who had actually been fasting, suggested that if they were all that hungry, why not chew off their fingernails and swallow them? "We're not that desperate, Frank," Giftwood snapped. "It may come to that," Brad said ominously. He held up his fingertips to the others, but the scars were too small for them to make out. False bottom restrictions. Many more theories were rejected than I have space to delineate here regarding the phrase false bottom restrictions. They generally fell into two categories, however: those that saw the phrase as indicating restrictions upon false bottoms, and those that viewed the phrase as referring to bottom restrictions that were themselves false. There were, in addition, wildly divergent ideas dealing with the abstractions and concepts supposedly encoded within the phrase, but these were not as numerous as the main two groups. As it was felt that the public would overwhelmingly interpret the phrase as having something to do with smuggling and the circumvention of customs laws, an additional exploratory panel was formed to, explore how all these people who made up the public would react should it turn out that they were wrong. This secondary panel was remunerated for their services at a higher rate than the first, as it was felt that the responsibility laid upon them was far more taxing, and the theorizing to be done was of a far more discreet nature. Of course, there were disagreements about this coming from new members of the first panel, but working as they were under the direction of the long arm of the Ministry of Hypothetical Digression, there was little they could do to change matters. A third panel was proposed to sort out any differences between the two, but this was opposed so vigorously by them that the idea was dropped. Meanwhile, the smugglers, working under the loosest of confederacies, debated little except within the interiors of their own conscious minds. The ones who made use of false bottoms were generally held to be amateurs, except when the false bottom was not in a piece of luggage, but in the hold of a small boat. Then smiles of respect and delight at the professionalism of others were the general response. As the map zone did not border any large body of water, such as the world-encircling ocean, the subject of boats, big or small, bringing contraband into the area was strictly limited to anecdotes to pass the time away until the next job was to be done. Thus, we see that the entire debate over the phrase false bottom restrictions was on its face a moot one, as false bottoms were not generally used by the professional smugglers unless, of course, the phrase referred to bottom restrictions being false. Then the debate would be a worthwhile one, for in truth they would be false. But then, if that was so, why the debate? An arrival on rocky festivities. In summoning the memories of his arrival on rocky festivities, Vol Stoddard shook his head at the thought that he still did not know exactly what the name rocky festivities referred to. Someone certainly had a surreal sense of humor when he, or she, Stoddard acknowledged that the architect could have been a woman, named the tower in that peculiar manner. Parenthetically, I have mentioned that Stoddard thought of the architect as the bestower of the name. Now, however, reaching for the memory aid, he further acknowledged that it might have been the contractor or even the owner who came up with it. "Does that stuff help you think?" Necrosanct asked, pointing at the hot cup of tea in Stoddard's hand. "Yeah, I call it my memory aid, or at least," he paused to consider, "someone does." He sipped in what he deemed a thoughtful manner. "Okay now, Stoddard, you have just arrived on rocky festivities. I assume you say on because you had to fly up in a craft of some kind and make a landing on the platform near the summit. Then what happened?" "Right," Stoddard nodded. "I was flown up in an autobird. We landed on that platform, which is inaccessible in any other way. I'm sure you've seen the tower from the ground. That platform is almost 1,000 feet up. Scary. There's no guardrail. There were about 6 of us in the group. I can't remember exactly how many." "Was the goat with you?" Necrosanct asked. "A goat?" "Yes, there was a goat with us. I don't know his name. He seemed to be traveling with one or two other people. As I told you, I went up alone. That is, without a companion." "Yes, you told me. And then? Then what happened?" "Well, we were greeted by some people that worked for rocky festivities. Were they uniformed?" Necrosanct interrupted. Yes, I suppose they were. They had name tags and everything. I remember one of them was a really good-looking girl. Her name was... Oh, God, what was it?" "It doesn't matter," Necrosanct urged Stoddard on. "What did the interior of the tower look like at that level?" Stoddard considered. "I'm going to need some more tea." "Organ brutally drained of enterprisingness." "Who can tell us which organ has been so brutally drained of enterprisingness?" Professor Turin asked the classroom full of grown people. "Anyone? Ned, do you have the answer?" "Well, I take it you don't mean like a Hammond B3. Ned Feast felt his way. A few in the room laughed. "I don't think so," the professor said. "What's a Hammond B3? Greater laughter met this question. "It's an organ used on a lot of old jazz albums," was the best Feast could do. "An organ? You mean a musical instrument?" Turin stabbed the air with his fingertips. "Yes." Any previous enthusiasm was gone from Feast's voice. Golly, I had forgotten that there was such an aspect to the word's definition. Professor Turin shook his head. "No, not that kind of organ. An organ in the body. Can you tell us which organ in the body was drained of enterprisingness?" In this particular subject, Feast stalled. He knew the spotlight was still on him. "Yes." Turin turned around to the table upon which lay the nearly catatonic goat. We're still dealing with this subject." Willow-Eye spoke up, sparing Feast from further discomfort. "The brain?" She was confident of the answer, but she added the slightest questioning lilt to it out of politeness' sake. "Very good, Miss Weiss." Turin seemed to sigh in relief. Feast, although he wanted to, did not turn his head to Willa and convey his appreciation with a manly grin or a bold wink. He might have merely nodded, but he didn't do that either. After class was over, however, he managed to work his way to the young woman's side and began a charmingly self-deprecating conversation. At the first decent opening, he asked Miss White out. "I'm dating someone," she shot back, as if he had suggested that they murder a random stranger together in violation of her strict moral code. She added an apology, but the flash of outrage, or was it reflexive defensiveness, had already knifed into Feast. Still, he later admitted it gave him a better aftertaste than a rejection based on revulsion. It allowed him to hate her instead of himself. No evidence of polydactylism. After the goat subject had expired, from lack of interest in anything, Torn postulated, a curious thing happened. Normally, the bodies of research subjects were immediately cremated in the basement facility, but on this occasion, 2 men bearing authorization papers signed by the school's chancellor entered the auditorium and took the dead goat away. "I demand to know what you're going to do with that goat." Turn had followed the 2 men downstairs to their waiting van. We all have our specialized fields of research, Professor," one of the men told him. The other grinned and said, "Keep watching the journals. Maybe you'll see something." "Which journals?" Turn asked as the van doors were shut. "Which journals?" he yelled as the van drove away. Nearly a year later, having all but forgotten the incident, Turin came across a paper, not in Spice Times or the Savory Papers, the 2 journals most closely associated with his field, but in the Clam Digger's Hammock, entitled "Documentation Hidden Inside a Hole in the Sheetrock." The conclusion of this paper, no evidence of polydactylism. He threw the volume down on his desk with a bang, startling the grad student and his paramour in the middle of their act of coitus on the desk in the office next door. "Polydactylism!" Torn shouted. "Does that mean iniquity?" asked the paramour. The grad student's reply is unknown, for following Turin in the full theory of his flight up to the dean's office, we have neither time nor ears to hear it. "Polydactylism!" Turin repeated his shout for the dean. "What's that, Turin?" the dean lackadaisically begged. "Polydactylism! The goat had 5 digits on the end of each of his legs." Turin leaned on the dean's desk and pronounced this with all the finality of cosmic law. "Are you sure, man?" The dean's mouth gaped beneath his mustache. "I am," Torn insisted. The dean fingered his mustache thoroughly before asking, "What goat?" Hazard the Green Island. "Well, Brant, shall we hazard the green island?" Old Mr. Thorpe pointed with his cane at the small island in the middle of Truescale's pond. "You can, Mr. Thorpe. I've got better things to do." Brant Borden rubbed his eyes wearily. "Oh, come now. Oh, come on, man. I can't row myself out there," Thorpe reasoned. Borden looked at the old man in his silly, broad-brimmed white hat and thought how much fun it would be to strand him on the island. That would teach him. With this half-intention in mind, he agreed to accompany Thorpe. "This is paradise," Thorpe declared, looking about at the well-tended grounds of Truescale before setting foot in the leather-covered coracle. "If you say so," Borden muttered. He held the little boat tightly against the dock while the old man got in. "I love this place," Thorpe said. "It was the best thing the Vandal family ever did for this city," he added when he noticed that Borden wasn't fully attentive. "They employ 700 people who would otherwise be on the dole. That's something, I guess," Borden said through gritted teeth as he struggled with the... Oh, I read it in the wrong voice. "They employ 700 people who would otherwise be on the dole. That's something, I guess," Borden said through gritted teeth as he struggled with a single oar. "But on the other hand, they promote one of the most invidious cults around. And Truescale tips the balance." Thorpe wagged his finger at Borden pedantically in the midst of drawing on his white gloves. The half-gloved finger flopped flaccidly. Borden glanced at their destination roughly 200 feet away. "Is that Ramona?" he asked aloud. He had seen a young lady whose nose excited him. "I don't know," Thorpe answered, not looking around to see. "Watch how you're paddling, Borden. I'm bobbing up and down here." "This boat is unbalanced," Borden growled, "like the Vandal family's legacy," he added to himself. "Watch it!" The old man shifted his weight in a panic and tipped the coracle up on end. Did Borden assist him in falling into the water? It is to be assumed so, for it is hard to believe that Thorpe could fall in even under those conditions. He had a death grip on the side. With the coracle once again floating correctly, Borden continued to the island. "Aren't you going to help Mr. Thorpe?" Ramona demanded as she took off her shoes. Alright, we're going to end it there for today.